Hi guys, in this tutorial we are going to be looking at exposure control. Before we jump in, we need to understand what exposure means, and according to photographylife.com, in photography, exposure is the amount of light which reaches your camera, sensor or film. It is a crucial part of how bright or dark your pictures appear. In other words, this is what it means. The amount of light that hits the sensor of the camera is what determines the exposure of that image. And you see here we have a correct exposure. In this image it is segmented into 5, and in the middle is the correct exposure, and to the right you see that this image is brighter and we are losing some part of the sky. The sky is losing some of its blue, and if you look here it is totally overexposed. By looking at this pavement here, you see that the overexposed image lost all the texture on the concrete pavement. And if you look at this place as well, it is lost totally. We can't see the texture there, and the sky is turning to something else. And if you look at the left, you see that the same thing. The sky is getting darker, dark blue kind of, and you see here this grass is getting darker as well, even to this area. And you can see also here it is looking like late evening. So that is it. When an image is underexposed, it means that the amount of light that the sensor captured is not enough for that kind of lighting situation at that particular time. And also, if it is overexposed, it means that the amount of light that the sensor captured is too much to actually uh, be the correct lighting. So now let's just jump into 3ds Max and see how it is interpreted in 3ds Max. Now, for every 3D application, there is always a camera, because it is assumed that you are going to, at one point or the other in your work, become a photographer. Now, if you come here under the Create tab, you'll see camera here. And now, even though we are going to be using either Corona or Vray for this, I can tell you many render engines also have their camera and the way they handle exposure. So now, let's just pick physical camera here, which is a default camera in 3ds Max. If you are using starting from 2016 till date, if your 3ds Max is that recent, you have physical camera. But if you don't worry, I'm going to be touching on Vray physical camera as well. But for now, let's just pick physical camera. And anytime I want to place my camera, I place it from the top view. So I just create one like this. And now I come to this viewport and I press C. So it's bringing me the camera view that I just created. So now I can just try and play with the position. I can lift it up to like 600 here. You can see I'm using move tool, so it's very important. And also I can pick the target and try to, oh, that's not the target, this is the camera target. And try to move it. So the best way for me is to come here to this viewport and move it from there. So now it's looking good. And also pick the camera, I can come to the modify tab here and just let it get closer by using the focal length of 45, so it's closer to the building. And I think maybe 50 should work. All right, So the next thing is to, I feel like I can, okay, okay, this is good. So you can select the camera again. You can come to this viewport to select it, or you can come to this viewport and click on this camera, physical camera 001, and click select camera. So when you select camera, possibly your own interface might not look like this. It might actually look like, sorry, it's not working. So what I actually did was to drag this panel out to become to like this, but it seems like the mouse is misbehaving and I don't want to waste your time on that. So let's just move on. So you'll see perspective control. If you don't have these two panels, you can just scroll up and you'll see perspective control and just enable auto vertical tilt, and you can see now the building is now standing upright. Now to go to the exposure, the first thing you need to do is, after you've added your camera, you need to add your light as well. And here I've added a Vray light for afternoon, which means that the sun is quite high in the sky. So now if I right click, I can't right click and see what I want yet because I need to go and set my render engine to Vray. So right now you can see the render is on NVIDIA Mental. Why? Is because I brought the model from Revit, and Revit will automatically choose Mental, when it gets to 3ds Max for its render engine. So we are going to change it to Vray, and because I've done some presets, so I'm going to just choose test render and click on Vray next update and click load. Now it is here, and if you want to know more about render setup, presets, there will be a link down here, that you can click. That's our last week tutorial. So now that we have this, I can right click and choose VFB, which stands for virtual frame buffer. So the virtual frame buffer is where our rendering will be, and for us to have real-time feedback on the lighting and the exposure control, I'm going to be using interactive rendering. So interactive rendering will be making the update in real time, so I don't need to waste time rendering. So let's just click on it. It's coming. It's trying to update all the instances and the geometries. Now we have this, and it's quite so funny because everything is totally washed out, like plain white, and it's not quite good for what we are trying to achieve. So how can we deal with the exposure now, since we are saying that this image is overexposed? So I'm going to show you some of the settings that we can actually use. Now if you look at this, you see the title here is ISO. So one major settings on every camera, DSLR camera now, is ISO. ISO controls the sensitivity of the camera to light, and if the setting is on 200, you can see the way it looks is a little bit dark, even though the outside is okay, but the inside is really dark. And if you can see 400, well, we still have a nice outside, yet the inside is nowhere to be, so you cannot rely on this kind of exposure. But you can see as it is increasing, we are having image becomes brighter. So in this our own case, the image is brighter already. That means we need to decrease whatever we have on the ISO so that we will have a normal image. For a physical camera, sorry, for normal 3ds Max physical camera, you have two options for camera sensitivity under the exposure gain. You can see. So if I collapse all this, you see now you can see exposure. Just click on it, and it is using target for now. That means it's using exposure value, and I want to use ISO. You can see the ISO is grayed out, so I'll go from target to manual. So by going from target to manual, it enables the ISO, and by default on every DSLR camera, I guess it is always 100. So I'm going to leave it at 100, and you can see now that our image is actually coming out well, and without doing any other thing, without reducing the intensity of the sun, everything is coming together. And the next thing that is used on a normal DSLR camera is called shutter. Shutter speed determines the amount of light that enters. So now let's talk about shutter. What is a shutter? When you are posing for a photograph, and the camera man, the photographer, press a button and released it, you hear a sound. And if you are attentive enough, you will see that the speed at which that sound, at which its sound is totally different. So it depends on the speed at which there's a door in front of the camera lens. When the button is pressed, it is opened, and when the button is released, it is closed. The speed at which it's closed is what we call shutter speed. What is the shutter? The shutter is the door, and the speed at which it closes, it is the speed that is why we call it shutter speed. Now, for that, it is measured in many cameras as fraction of a second. That means here now we have 1/4. That means 4 fraction of 1 second. That means you divide 1 second by 4. And here we have 6 fraction of a second. That means you divide 1 second by 6. And you can see what happens. If it is by 4, this is the exposure we have. If it is by 6, this is the exposure we have. It is brighter here and it is darker here. You know why? This will slowly close than this. This one will be faster than this, and on 15 you can see that it's darker. And if you want to try it right now, you can go and open a door, light will come in. The speed at which you close that door will determine the amount of light that is retained. So now let's go into our camera, and you see here we have shutter. Now, because in many cameras shutters have different settings, and the maker of 3ds Max, they believe that everybody is familiar to one setting or the other on different camera. If you are using Canon, you are familiar with the settings on a Canon than Nikon, or you are using a Samsung camera, or Panasonic or whatever. So because of that, they put all the settings that can be found on any DSLR camera on the physical camera. So some just measures in fraction of a second, like I said, some just measured in seconds, and some in degrees, and some in frames. Now for us, we are going to pick fraction of a second. And immediately I pick fraction of a second, you can see what happened. The image becomes much more darker. Why? Is because we have 1000 fraction of a second. That means 1 second is divided by 1000. The light that comes in is not much. So for now, I'm going to set it to maybe 200. And you can see it is a little bit brighter. So the last one, which is actually aperture, is like the eye of a camera. Now aperture have pinholes, so let me quickly find the image for aperture for you. So here is it. This is your camera lens, and you can see that those blades that we have inside, they are called aperture blades. So you can see here this button here, you rotate it and it closes or opens. So now if you notice here, f1.8 is opened and f2.8 is a little bit closed. 4 is a little bit closed. That means the higher the number, the lesser the intensity. And now if you look at this image, you can see f4 is much more brighter than f6.3, and you can see f25 is so close, is so dark rather, and you think that it's already evening. So now where do we have that in our camera? You see we have it under film sensor. I'm coming. Okay, this is aperture. You can see under lens we have the focal length, which I used to zoom to the building, and you can see we have aperture. Aperture by default is on 8 here, so let's try and put it on 2 and see what will happen. You can see the image becomes brighter, and now if I put it on 16, it becomes darker, irrespective of the settings that we have here. So by default, I'll just leave it on the default, which is 8, and that is how to control the exposure. Of course, these three settings, they have secondary work that they do. Aperture, for example, work for depth of field, and shutter speed work for motion blur, and this exposure works for film grain. So to have some grainy look on your film, you just need to increase this exposure, and when you increase it, you will need to balance this one so as to maintain good exposure. Now that is just it, but there's more to it. Now, different settings for different situation. If I close this right now and I switch to Corona, so let's switch to Corona render. So now if I just click on interactive rendering for Corona, so you can see now it is totally dark. And for Corona, many times you don't have to set much things on your camera. And if I come to the post right here, you see undertone mapping, I cannot control the exposure, and I'll tell you why right now, but I'm coming. I need to quickly override some settings so that I will not be getting this message. So that's saying override material, put Corona material there. So material Corona. Now I can close this. Now that we have that, the first thing you need to do when you are using Corona and you want to make sure that you work on your exposure control is to come to rendering and choose exposure control. And now if you notice, because I'm using physical camera, the exposure control here works with physical camera. That means it is only the setting on the physical camera that is going to work. But for Corona, Corona is not accepting it. So let's just change to no exposure control. So by using no exposure control, close, and now coming to settings here, and I'll just use simple exposure. Now I'm going to stop it and restart the interactive rendering. And by doing that, you can see now the image is totally overexposed. And really, you have two options for Corona. Is either you choose basic photographic setting, and if you can see use photographic exposure control, automatically I have this, and you can see the shutter speed is on 50. The f-stop, which is f number here, which is the aperture, is on 16, and the ISO, like I did here, is on 100. So you can choose whether you want that or you don't by just say, okay, I want 200 here. You can see what will happen now. To be a little bit dark. So, and maybe put 8 here to fit into this setting that we have. So whichever way you want to do it, you can see the way to manage exposure control with the two of them, and yet you can choose to just use simple exposure control. And when you have that, everything you need to do is to come here. So let me stop it first. Start it again. So you can see I can come here under the exposure value and I can start maybe 10. So it will actually increase. So maybe 0.1, and I can reduce the highlights. You can see now, so from the highlights maybe 20, or come here 0.01, So normally I should have used Corona's sun, but I'm using Vray sun here, so that's why I'm having all this, and I will have done it better if I use Corona sun. But yet you understand, if you want to control the exposure with it, you know what to do. Another thing is actually you can come to rendering again and under exposure control. So I'm going to change back to Vray now. Let's go back to that test render. I should have stopped this before I do that. So let me just quickly pause the video recording. So now it is on Vray. You can see the text render. So I will right click again. And choose Vray VFB. And now by choosing no exposure control, if I should just render, now you can see it is overexposed despite the fact that I've set the camera here. But because I'm using no exposure control, so another thing you can do, like you did, like I just showed you in Corona, is you can control the exposure from here. The highlights button, you reduce the exposure as well, but it's not really working well. So what can you do? So what you can do is, now you can choose to use Vray exposure control from here. And what does that mean? It means that all the settings you will make from here will override the setting that is on this camera. So I stop it now and I start all over again. So you can see that it's on 200, 8, and 100 according to what we have here. And you can see with it, we have something really cool. And if you come to the shutter speed, if you set it to 120, for example, you can see it is increasing. If I set this to 200, so 3ds Max give you, with the render engine, gives you various ways to set your exposure, and you are the one that will determine which one is good for you. As for me, I'll still prefer the physical camera method, but I'm just showing you many other methods that you can use to set your exposure control. So the next one, which is actually going to be the final, is to just choose no exposure control again. Stop this, and instead of using physical camera, you can use either Corona camera now or Vray physical camera. And even if you use Corona camera, the best way to control the exposure in Corona is what I just showed you. the other time. So let's just quickly use Vray physical. So instead, when you come here and pick physical camera, you can see corona camera there as well. You will need to come and pick Vray from here. So just choose Vray physical camera and come to the top here. You can just draw the camera like that and press C in this viewport to go to the camera view. You can select the camera target, lift it up, to just quickly compose it. 600. The camera target. And come to modify tab. So let's set the focal length to 45 or 50. Okay, so we can come here under tilt shift and choose automatic vertical tilt correction. So I can raise this a little bit high as well. And now you see the settings for both your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture. They are in the same place. So you see film speed, which is ISO, is 100, F number, by default. And now with that, you don't need to have any exposure control here. And if I right click, choose Vray VLB. Now in this Vray VLB now, if I start, so you can see the way it looks, and if I come, I feel like it's too dark, I can just come to maybe the shutter speed, change it to 150 or possibly 100, and you can see how it is going. Also, everything looks a little bit blue, so you can come to color and exposure and you'll see white balance. So for this, it is on D65, which means it's daylight at 6,500 Kelvin. And if you are not satisfied with that, you can put it on daylight, and you can see there are some warm effect coming from the sun to it. But I still prefer it at D65 anyway. You can see the difference. So just to show you all that now, I believe you understand a little or much about exposure control right now. If you are okay with the results, you just have to go and do your final rendering. Of course, in this, we are not going to do final rendering right now because it's just only the lighting that we have done. It still remain materials. So thank you very much. Let me have your comments in the comment section below. What do you think? If you have any suggestion even for exposure control or any correction, or what you want us to talk about in the next tutorial. Thank you very much.